Welcome to the Rose City, Rip City, Stumptown, and Bridgetown. Welcome to the July episode, my 45th birthday episode of My Real Portland the Pod. I'm My Real Portland host, Joseph Lyons, and once again you're about to meet four amazing Portland originals, a comedian, a storyteller, a musician, and My Real Portland's new co-host, Christian Burke, who's a little comedian, storyteller, and musician, all three himself. Each My Real Portland episode features amazing artists and performers from all around the city. I'll ask them all the Portland questionnaire, and then I'll throw in a game show on top of it all for a fun night out with friends, German food, and beer. So tonight's show is recorded at Portland's Jade Lounge next to the Slide Inn at 24th and Southeast Ankeny on July 14th, 2019. Our next show is Sunday, August 11th, and I'll have the phenomenal comedian Mohammed El-Sheikhy, the incredible rapper and hype queen Karma Rivera, and a woman who has been leading our community through some of the worst times and is currently running for Portland Mayor in 2020, Teresa Rayford. Come to the show on August 11th, happy hour at 5:30, show at 6 p.m. Details at myrealportland.com. My Real Portland is beginning a brand new podcast series in August called From the Hip, Homes in Portland. I'll be stepping into homes of Portlanders all over the city and finding out how they make home in our city. Stay tuned here for more details as the new podcast gets launched soon. Speaking of homes in Portland, this show is produced by myself, Joseph Lyons, Portland realtor, helping home buyers and sellers make their real dreams become real estate. Putting this show together is my real dream, and I support this fun hobby with my professional day job in real estate. My career is all word of mouth, so please tell others you know. The realtor in the streets, podcaster in the sheets, Joseph Lyons. That's josephlyons.com. And now, on with the show.
It's always been home, I've always been here, I've always got time for one more beer. So pick up a beer and pull up a chair and strike up the band. It's My Real Portland.
Hello, and welcome to My Real Portland! Coming to you live from the Verdant Jade Lounge at 24th and Southeast Ankeny in my hometown, Portland, Oregon. This is My Real Portland, highlighting real people and real stories from all around the area. I'm your host, Joseph Lyons, realtor in the sheets, podcaster in the sheets. And I've got a great show lined up for you this evening, including musician Adam Carpinelli. Right here are Tod Kelly. Comedian Molly Smithson. And introducing my co-host, Creme Brulee.
Hello.
How's it going, Creme Brulee?
Dehydrated, stressed. My anxiety level's a million.
Oh, why?
Here's my creative process. It is not do anything at all for an entire day, month, however long I have, and then the day of, or day before, or hour before, in this particular situation, try to do a week's worth of work.
Uh-huh.
And you know, that's just me.
And how successful were you?
You know, we're here.
We're recording. So how long have you been in Portland?
I moved here last March.
From where?
Atlanta, Georgia.
What on earth made you decide to move to Portland from Atlanta?
I got kicked out of my house at home for smoking weed. I don't know if you can tell by the way I look right now. But I do that, and the unprepared thing, but I do quite a bit of that, and I actually had an ex-girlfriend who lived up here, and after I got kicked out, she was like, you should look at moving to Portland. And I found a job in the house on Craigslist in one day, and moved 3 weeks later, and the rest is history.
Fantastic. So, and you were just telling me that you started doing comedy once you got to Portland.
Yeah.
And not something that you had intended to do before.
No, it's just, everything happens in time, you know what I mean? If you're open to everything and new experiences, you will constantly evolve as a person, and like comedy isn't like my goal in life at all. You know, nothing really is my goal in life. It's just continually express and peel off new layers of myself.
Love that. Well, and you do that through improv. That's one of the things you enjoy doing, yeah?
Improv's cool. Improv is tight. Really anything I do where people will look at me and give me attention, I'm pretty willing to do. So thank you guys for Give me a reason to leave the house. I only leave the house unless I'm getting paid and like 20 people are gonna laugh at me and tell me they love me. Otherwise, like.
Well, but you leave your house to do your podcast called Shvvvr.
Shvvvr is my podcast.
Yeah.
Yes. It's about to rebrand though, so.
Oh, okay, so not Shvvvr, but you do a fantastic podcast where you interview artists all around town.
Oh yes, artists. I love artists. Portland. I don't know if you guys knew this. Kind of artistic city. There's some like kooky folks up here. I don't know if you guys like saw again me sitting here. I just started watching the show. What do you guys think of the Shvvvr? I'm new. This is day 3 of Shvvvr.
It's a bit precious.
That's kind of the lure of it, because like on my skin, you know, you're kind of like, you know. Sorry, I don't want to get into on the roof so early. They just raised an issue in Portland when no one asked me to talk about it. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I just think it's very precious. It reminds me of when I was your age, actually. But
what were you wearing?
chokers, but they weren't lacy. They were actually kind of velvet.
Oh,
yeah.
Ooh, that might be next. you got any of them laying around?
No, but I actually do have a piece that I made in costume class, which is this really frilly silver band that goes around the neck that I used a belt buckle right here that then has. It's ridiculous. so before we go into that,
what do you wear with that? Like, what do you wear with a belt buckle on? Do you wear another belt, or is it to complement the belt? Is it 2 belt buckles, or is it like 1 belt buckle too much?
I had a whole costume set to go with this, and it was called Upholstery Boy. because although I was very creative with the look, I had no idea how to be creative with the name.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a hat, a mask, and a whole bunch of creative things that were going with it. One of the things that I do on all of my podcasts is I ask each of my guests the Portland questionnaire. So if you want to get us started,
let's get going.
No, that's not. Oh, that is the right cue. That's right. Let's do it again. So the good thing about being a podcaster is that I can just cut this and redo this. Watch this. That sound means it's time for the Portland questionnaire. Creme Brulee, are you ready for the Portland questionnaire?
Born ready.
What's your favorite smell in Portland?
Good question. I personally like the smell of. There's not good like tea shops. Are you going to like Tay-Chai tea? Or, like, tea shops. You just walk by and you be like get some of that jasmine walk through you. You're like a whole different person. And there's just the stores. If you walk down the streets, I'd say like Hawthorne Boulevard, like any street, like Division, where there's just like stores with like just people selling their.
And that's great. And actually, I know the owners of them. I need to reach out for for sponsorship.
Yeah.
Sponsorships are available of the podcast. What's your favorite sound in Portland?
The sound. Honestly, this is weird. The best thing for me is if I get on the Hawthorne and the bridge goes up. And so the sound of like that. Because it's like, because I'm not a rap. People in their cars are dicks and are like, I gotta go marry my place, you know? But it's like, if you just sit there on a nice day, just sit on the bridge for like 20 minutes and just like, you know, might pull out the big pen.
And just
pull the big pen.
Totally. You don't remember back in the day, we used to cruise through the city and we would go over the bridges and whatnot and we would get jammed up in those and that was crazy.
I'll never get tired of the bridges.
Yeah. So what famous Portlandian would you most like to meet?
I feel like, actually, probably Fred Armstead.
Fred Armisen?
Yeah, Fred Armstead.
Or were you meaning Armistead Motley? Yeah, Fred Armstead. Yeah.
Like it's weird because I used to There was one time, I'm a big breakup Netflix binge watch person. Like if I go through a breakup, I'll watch like 30 TV shows in like the next week. And one time I did that and I watched like all of Portlandia. Like before I even like was like, ooh, Portland. So it was like, it feels like in My Life as a Television show. I don't know if you guys know that. Welcome, thank you. You guys didn't know that because they paid you and all that stuff, and we don't have to get into logistics. I know, we all know. Let's keep going. But it's like one of those things that's like obvious foreshadowing. Because I was like in a very moody, oh, what do I do with my life today? So I'm just like, oh, this little quirky town. And now I'm here for some reason.
Damn that show.
Yeah, sorry. Here from Portlandia. I'm the worst. I'm also from California. No, I'm kidding.
Also
now from California.
Where are we most likely to find you for weekend brunch?
My kitchen.
100%
chance.
If you could rename any Portland street, what street would you rename and why?
I would rename Hawthorne Boulevard Heartbreak Boulevard. Because I have, in my year living here, I have 3 ex-girlfriends that live on a 3-block stretch at Hawthorne Boulevard. And my friends know that. I met one, and after one broke my heart, the next one was like, oh, here's my address. And it was the next block. And I was like, well, I guess. And then it happened again now. So, Heartbreak Boulevard.
Do you know the original name of Hawthorne Boulevard?
I do not.
Asylum Boulevard.
Does
that fit?
That resonated with me.
Yeah.
That was moving.
If you were a tree.
If I was a tree?
Which Portland park would you be planted in?
Selwood Riverfront Park for sure.
Selwood.
Yeah, I moved here and I lived in Selwood at first, and I'd probably go there almost every day.
Awesome.
When I do, drugs. It's my favorite place to go.
When you said running, I was like, oh, so are you a marathoner?
Nah. Marathon is what a specific thing. You know what I mean? I was listening. The reason it's called marathon is because the guy ran the length for marathon. But the thing about it is that guy died.
Right.
That guy died. And the thing was like, yeah, all right, everybody, let's do it. What? Why? It's so long. 26.2. Why not just 26? What are we trying to do? Mock him? If you run a marathon and die, you deserved it.
You want to know something weird? That talk. I'm this weird thing called an ultra marathoner, which means that I've gone more than that distance and I haven't died.
Why?
I've only done it once and I haven't repeated it. So
how long is an ultra marathon?
Anything that's more than 26.
What are some of your lengths?
30 miles. I've done it. Yeah.
Did you have to Vaseline the nips?
No, but I've been around the people who do that. I just use Band-Aids, which is odd.
Adjacent. I don't know if better. You know what that I feel of all the parts of a marathon, moisturizing your nipples seems like the only part that could be enjoyable. If I was getting into it, that would probably be what it was for.
Oh my gosh, that's a fantastic transition to my first guest. My first guest hosts a show right here at the Jade Lounge-ish every Thursday evening called Jaded. You can catch her all over town and hear her on her new podcast, Take Some Molly. Please welcome to the stage comedian Molly Smithson.
The mic here, so you should definitely come out. I produce it with them. They're great. I'm Molly. A lot of people ask me if my parents named me after the drug. Fucking of course not. They actually named the drug after me. Because I make you sweat all night. Then you regret doing me the whole day afterwards. I have a sordid past with Free Willy, the whale, and his unsheathed penis. Yeah, you heard me right. Who here was in Portland and Oregon in the 90s? Yeah? Okay, good. This will make sense. So you might remember we had a celebrity resident at the Newport Aquarium, Keiko, alias Free Willy, the orca who starred as the titular character in Free Willy. It was 1996. Keiko was in between hit movie, 2 flop sequels. He's like the cetacean Bob Saget, right? He's feeling loose, he's feeling funky. He's ready to reveal himself to crowds of preschool fangirls. So we're standing in the blue light of the aquarium. And he swims by and everyone oohs and ahs. And then from his milky underbelly releases an appendage about the size of a baseball bat. And this basic bitch next to me goes, "Daddy, what's that?" Silent. Kind of like in here right now. And I'm 3 years old at the time. I've never seen a human penis, let alone a whale penis in my life. But I know what that is. That's his penis. I think I was just very about sex positivity at a young age, you know? Like, free the Willy, free the Willy, free the Willy. Come on, guys, free the Willy, free the Willy, free the Willy. They did free Willy, and he died. Very sad, I know. They said it was pneumonia, but he was also not accepted by another pod of whales. And I think that's because they called him which roughly translates to small fin Willy. Turns out baseball bat, not that impressive in the animal kingdom. I am a sex-positive comic. I talk about sex a lot, which can be weird for some people, so I like to acknowledge it. Basically because I have the voice and face and general demeanor of a gumshoe girl detective. You know, I'll tell you all, I'm way past 18, it's fine, you can laugh. Like, Harriet the spy, no. Harry Puss the bi, yes. I am a bipolar, bisexual, bipedal woman. I really just like pears, is all it is. I was at dinner with my rich asshole uncle and the rest of our family. But you know, you don't have like an uncle that's in between. They're either a rich asshole or a cool loser, right? In between is just your aunt's husband. So I'm at dinner with my rich asshole uncle. And my little sister Nora, who's 12, looks at me across the table. And she goes, "Molly, are you bisexual?" And I was like, "Not in this moment. No, Nora, but typically I am." She goes, "You know what your tombstone should say? Bye, bye, bye." Bye, bye. I get the other two. My boyfriend and I are talking about getting married. Thank you for the silence. No, it's fine. By talking, I really mean that we did mushrooms together, and I forced him to tell me he would marry me. He's like, "Yeah, I know you're gonna ask, and you just say it. Like, say I will, like, as my eyes swallow him whole." But before we take that plunge, we wanted to get a pretty big relationship step out of the way. So we decided to have a threesome. Yeah, you heard me right. Other places, you go to premarital church counseling. Portland, we have group sex. Same deal. A lot of talking, a lot of crying. You might consult your priest, I don't know. We went and tried to meet women in real life. He joined Magic the Gathering tournaments. And I started going to a rock climbing gym. No such luck. So we got on the hellscape that is Tinder. Oh my God. As a bi woman, I don't know what I hate more. A dude in like a bucket hat with a fish in his picture, or a queer girl with baby bangs and an ornate septum ring. They are never simple or timeless or classic. It's never just like a little gold hoop. It's always so ornate. The only line that works with them is, how the fuck do you look good in maroon eyeshadow, you know? But we finally met a woman, and on the eve of the 4th of July, we did it. We had a threesome. Happy birthday, America! U.S. women's team wasn't the only one scoring that weekend. Hey! I won't say a lot about the sex because I'm a lady, but I will say a lot more elbows than you'd anticipate. Like 150% the joints of sex with just one other person. Also, I didn't think I'd get jealous, but I did. Not of her and my partner, just her. Turns out I'm a lift all women up feminist in the streets, and holy shit, this bitch comes faster than me. What the fuck is wrong with my pussy in the sheets? Afterwards, she left us a note and a plastic flower on our table. So like, all right, Allie Larder, don't Beyonce me, don't murder me, okay? But then ghosted, completely ghosted. Until, because of course you stalk the woman you had a threesome with on Instagram, of course, right? I saw on Instagram she had moved to Boise to live with a couple that she had gone to college with at Brigham Young University. We were her polygamy practice test. We were her sister-wife starter kit. And it's like, it's not the possessiveness, of course, it's just this pussy does not endorse the teachings of the Mormon church, right? Like, you can't use this like your golden tablets, man. So I'm writing a book to warn the youth. It's going to be very popular here in Portland and nowhere else. It's called The Unicorn That Used Us. Thank you all so much. I'm Molly Smithson.
Here we all are. So a bipedal bisexual who had a triad. I was actually, when you had that joke, I had the question, so when are you going to do a threesome? And then it came 2 minutes later, the joke came, not you.
No, that was the problem with the threesome. She took 2 minutes, me not so much.
Was she cheering you on afterwards? What was going on?
No, I don't think cheering me on,
Okay.
really. I think just, that's the weird thing too, right? It's like, all right,
Yeah,
well, I
it's
guess
like,
we, the established couple, are just gonna come here, thanks, see yourself out, bye. It was weird, for sure.
So where does the threesome come up in your new podcast, Take Some Molly? Has that come up as a point of advice yet?
It has not, actually. I've gotten a lot of, lonelier questions, more than, I have too many people to sleep with. Or oh, will I ever find love? I'm like, I don't know. That's too general of a question.
So what advice do you have for somebody who asks you on your show, will I ever find love?
I would say, yeah, you probably already have found love somewhere in the world. You know?
What a great answer.
And you just gotta seek it out. In fact, thank you. Take some Molly. You just took some Molly.
I did. That was fantastic. So that's how it works.
Oh, don't cry.
I'm sweating.
Oh, okay.
I was sorry, it's subtle.
That was a great callback.
Still figuring out how to.
That was great.
How long have you been doing comedy?
3 years. Just in June. So, yeah.
And how are you liking it?
I love it.
Do you really love it?
I love it and then I absolutely hate it. There's no in between. If I'm like, I don't know, then I'm like, why are you doing this? I either love it, or I hate it and I am gonna die if I have to go on a stage again because that was so bad, you know? But yeah, I lucked out in that I first did comedy on my birthday and I made all my friends go as my birthday party, and then they all had to wait because it was my birthday, and so like I had set up no ability for myself to fail that time. And then after that I failed playing, but I was like, as long as I can do it once and it's okay and not all my worst nightmares, then I can keep doing it.
A lot of people say that comedy saved them. Have you had that experience?
I mean, it saved me like day to day and like, oh my god, this day is the same as the last 400 before it, and now I get to go on stage and just do something ridiculous or see something that I've never seen before, and that breaks up the monotony.
Right.
But there wasn't really like a moment, my life wasn't so terrible and then it like turned around. It actually was so terrible I did comedy, it kind of got worse. And then I was like, well, I did this comedy thing, it's on the internet, nothing to lose, might as well keep doing it, and then it got better, so.
Right. Well, and that's what everyone says, is keep doing it, which is then leading into my next question. If you have advice for people who want to start stand-up.
Yeah.
Other than keeping doing it, what else is there?
I mean, it's tricky if you've never been on stage. It's really like where your strengths lie. So if you feel like you're a great writer, but you're just like, I've never been on stage, I don't know how to do that, I'd say go take a class. If you're here in Portland, Helium has amazing classes, Kickstand downtown, all of these great, where you can actually get yourself up there. If you're good at like shooting the shit and talking and you're just like, I don't know what to write down or what, just say whatever you want. Literally, I've hosted an open mic for 2 years now, and I can guarantee you someone has said something stupid or in my hour a week of hosting an open mic over the last 2 years than you'd say in 3 minutes, like just going up there.
Funny.
So, yeah. So.
If you had a Netflix show, what would it be?
I think it'd be like a modern Mary Tyler Moore deal, you know? Like, she's trying to have it all, oh no! A little hungover, a little bipolar, this is Molly's life. And then it would just be like, me, my cats, working from home, I don't know.
It seems fully formed already, I'm tuning in.
Call Netflix right now. They're making shows like crazy, let's do it. Yeah.
Any questions for Molly?
Molly,
Yes.
how do you write jokes?
All of my jokes are pretty much human 100% experiences I've had. And so I'll tell them to people as stories, and then if they work as stories, I'll turn it into a joke and twist parts so it's more jokey than just a story.
Do you find that it's a lot of like things that are like, oh, this is something that happened that's funny, or it's like, this is kind of something I see in the world that's more observational? Do you find?
Definitely things that have happened to me. I don't know. I think I have great observations about the world, and it's like, oh, I think Apple is slowing down Google Maps on our phones. Like, it's just stupid.
Whoa, really?
I don't know, man. I get high a lot, too, so my observations are pretty much just normal thoughts. Like,
Okay, next question. How convinced are you our phones are listening to us all the time?
oh, 100%.
Do you get like weird things? Like the other day, this happened to my friend over there. He was describing a song. He was describing a song. And it came on shuffle the next. We didn't say the name of it. He described a song. Neither of us knew. And the next song came on.
Yeah. But isn't that nice? Like, the
I
robots
have like
have got
thousands
your
of
back.
songs. Yeah.
The robots have you covered.
It's like, I don't even mind. If it's like giving me help like that, like targeted Instagram ads, like I do know, like yeah, I need this
There was
stuff.
just like a little notice saying, hey, we heard that.
Yeah, exactly.
For it.
Yeah, or just like also, you're listening to me all the time. You know I have to get up at 6, and if I'm not up, and my alarm's not set, why don't you go ahead and wake me up anyway? You know what I'm saying? why can't like my NSA agent start like really helping me out, make some phone calls for me? You know my schedule.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical. Molly, how can we follow you, stay in touch with you, or your next shows?
On Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and my website, it's all MOLLI, Go Lightly. Molly, Go Lightly. And then, Take Some Molly is on wherever you get your podcasts. Come to the Jade Lounge. I won't be hosting, but I'll be here on Thursday at 7 for the Jaded Mic. And then we have a show in Southwest, actually, that we're doing called The Big One.
Oh, yeah.
The name of it, and that's every Saturday at 9 p.m. So.
Where is that?
It's Center at Eatery. It's right next to Fulton Pub, like up in the bottom.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So come to any of those things. And they're all, mollygolightly.com or whatever. You can find everything there.
Awesome.
Sweet.
So that sound means it's time for our real Portland questionnaire. Are you ready?
I'm so ready. I studied.
So this question is going to be easy for you. What's your favorite smell in Portland?
Probably when you wake up in the morning in the summer and it's like half sap smell, half dewy smell, you know? You guys get that? I live like right by the Markham Forest, and so it's so forested and nice, and it's just like, I don't know, it reminds me of my grandparents live in Eugene, so like their back deck and getting up as a kid there, so it's like the most Oregon smell to me.
Love it.
Yeah.
What about your favorite smell?
That was my favorite. Oh, my favorite smell. Wait, that was my favorite smell.
Oh, your favorite sound. I'm sorry. I was thinking your sound was in the forest.
Oh, no.
I got ahead of myself. So
No.
you started with your smell. What's your favorite sound, Brian?
Thank you. Well, no, my favorite sound is the opposite. It's when people line up on the Ross Island Bridge to go over and they're all honking. I think it's so funny. I'm like, what are you honking at?
I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Everyone look at me. Speaking of bridges, what's your favorite bridge in Portland?
Ooh. I guess the Tillicum.
Mm-hmm.
New.
The People's Bridge.
Yeah, the People's Bridge. Yeah.
Is that right here? Are we calling it the People's Bridge?
That's what they call it,
That's
right?
what they call it,
Yeah.
the People's Bridge? Can I live there then? Like, what? They're not arresting me if I'm camping on the People's Bridge?
You can use it to bridge all of the things you'd like to bridge.
Alright, we're having a cookout on my bridge later, guys.
What famous Portlandian would you most like to be?
Tanya Harding.
All right.
Kind of hard in Portland.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
from here, oh yeah. I'm sure that when I was ice skating at the same time as her,
Oh,
so I'm
that's
sure
so
it was
cool.
on ice. I know the person who runs the Zamboni at the Lloyd Center ice rink. Isn't that exciting?
That get her on this podcast.
That's right. She is hosting a historic walking tour of Northwest Portland right now. Otherwise, she would be.
God,
She is a
wow.
fantastic woman, Dr. Tanya March. Check her
I'm changing my answer then. I want to meet Dr. Tanya March.
out. She is fantastic.
Tanya March over Tanya
She got a
Harding.
Zamboni on the podcast.
Do the podcast from the Zamboni. Where are we most likely to find you for weekend brunch?
Oh, that's a good. I don't know. I don't eat a lot of brunch as much as the white girls do. I just am not a fan. It's Center Eatery, actually, to plug my own venue. They have great food and great drink, or here at the Slide In, which is next door. Eugene just went back, but Eugene is an amazing cook, so.
In fact, my question used to be multiple choice, and I would always end it with, or right here at
Yeah.
Massamba. But then that got too long. Okay. If you could rename any Portland street, which street would you rename for who?
That's a hard one. I don't know. I guess. Well, you know how we have. That's in New York though. We have a statue of Balto, the dog. I was thinking that was the statues in. I think Pioneer. I don't know. There's a place with a dog statue. I would name it after Beverly Cleary. Is going to be my answer.
Oh,
Grand Park. Thank you. Whoever said that.
Beverly Cleary's a fantastic answer.
Yeah. That came to me. I was going to say Balto, and then I was like, no, Balto was never here.
Rigsby. No, Bigsby.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Ribsy.
Yes.
There we go.
We solved it. Way to go.
How many Portlandians does it take to name?
We'll see you guys next week.
Okay, and finally, if you were a tree, which Portland park would you want to be planted in?
Ooh. I guess Forest Park, just because it wouldn't be a lot of pressure to get a tree there. I was originally going to say Mills End Park would be the only tree to
I've had that answer.
you get dug up, you get tipped over, people run over you, so I'd rather. Yeah.
And Forest Park.
Yeah,
you're
Forest Park,
one of
basic
several
ass
million.
tree. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Basic ass tree. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Molly Smithson. My next guest is an author who has appeared in Marie Claire, NPR, Daily Beast, and more. He's been called Portland's unofficial godfather of Portland storytelling and hosts 7 Deadly Sins, a storytelling event where 7 storytellers share a true story, but one of them is a lie, and up for the audience to decide who's lying. He's not lying tonight. Please welcome to the stage our Tod Kelly.
When I first moved to Portland, I was a sophomore in high school. I barely knew anybody. My parents moved me in 3/4 of the way through the year. And we were coming up on summer vacation. I still didn't really know anybody. And a girl in my English class asked me what I was doing for the summer. I said I didn't know. And she said, a bunch of us are going to go to this camp. Do you want to come with us? And I didn't know anybody, and I was just really so thrilled that anybody would ask me. I said yes. And so my parents agreed, and we got sent in. And on the way, there were a few people who said, you know this is a Christian camp, right? And I said, yeah, but I my parents are Episcopal. I think it'll be fine. And we get there, and it is in the middle of nowhere in British Columbia. You have to get on a boat, and you have to go for 6 hours. There's no other way to get there. So there's no roads, there's no airstrip, there's no place for a helicopter to ride. When we finally get there, this boat full of 600 hormonal 16-year-old teenagers, and we flood off of the boat onto this sort of magical kid Huck Finn like Disneyland, and it smells like pine trees, and you can smell burgers and hot dogs because they're already cooking those for lunch. And it's just this amazing thing, and everybody seems so happy and they love one another. And while we are first sort of getting settled, I meet this girl, and she's so beautiful. And she has long dark hair, and she has a Dodger hat. And I just moved from Los Angeles, and so it just feels like a sign that if she's an LA Dodgers fan, and I'm an LA Dodgers fan, that it just makes sense that we're going to end up together. And we go into our cabin, and it's with a bunch of kids that I go to school with, but I don't know them. And we get to meet our cabin counselor, who's 20 years old. His name is John. He is impossibly beautiful. He looks like Chris Pine, only actually in real life. And he tells us we're going to have this amazing time, and if we know or we see any girls that we want to meet, let him know, because he knows all the other counselors, and he'll arrange to get us together. And I go to bed that night thinking, like, this is the best camp ever. And we wake up the next morning, and we go to breakfast, and the owner of the camp, who's this sort of small, old, gruff, he looks like Wilford Brimley, sort of gets up, and in this Wilford Brimley-esque voice sort of says, I know a lot of people here probably thought you were coming to a religious camp, but I want you to know that that is not the case. We're here to have fun. I don't want to hear any talk from anybody about religion. And that was great with me, because that's also what I wanted. And then he said, I would though, would anybody who's already given their life to Jesus Christ, will they come up here and join me on stage? And it's about 600 kids, and about 100 kids out of the 600 guys. And he says, okay, everybody back to your cabins, and then we'll release you for the day for activities. And so we go back to the cabin, and we talk, and then we learn that if we are some of the people who've already given our life to Christ, we're allowed to go out and spend the day however we want. And if we are not, we have to stay in the cabin and talk to our counselor about what Jesus Christ has to offer us. So everybody in my cabin were people who hadn't gone up on stage, so we're there all day. And we get up the next morning, and we go to breakfast, and the kindly old man gets up and says, I'd just like to know if there's anybody who's already given their life to Christ, I would like them to join me up on stage. 500 kids get up on stage and join them. By day 5 of this 10-day camp, I am the last heathen standing. And so every morning, everybody gets up on stage except for me. And I just won't do it. And it's sort of hard to describe why. Part of the reason is I've come to hate my camp counselor. He hates me as well. Because understand, like, all the other camp counselors, they are going out and they're having fun and they're flirting with other people. But my camp counselor has to stay in the cabin all day because of this asshole kid who will not give his life to Jesus Christ. And I refuse to do it because of something which is Luke 14. And if you don't know Luke 14, it is a thing that we have to go over every day before they release us. And it is a Bible verse that basically says, if your family does not follow Jesus, you need to turn your back on them. And it was just the one thing I couldn't do. I couldn't even lie about it. My family and I are tight. It's really important to me, and I just refuse to do it. At first, by the end of the camp, I was still the last heathen standing, but I just refused to do it to spite my camp counselor because I hated him that much. And as the week went on, it kept getting worse and worse. I don't actually believe that any of the counselors or adults told the other campers to sort of be mean and haze me, but it was just sort of the way kids work. And so people would come in and be the end of the night, and it would be ready for bed, and I brush my teeth, and when I get back, all the people I had camped with would have taken pictures of water and poured them in my bed, so I got to sleep in this soggy pool of water. Finally, we get to the end of the 10 days, and it's the night before we're about to leave, and the old man comes to the cabin. Like, I've never seen him talk to anybody except on stage. And he comes into the cabin, and he says, "John tells me you won't give your life to Jesus. And I think you're young and you feel like you know everything, but I'm going to tell you something right now. I'm going to give you an opportunity right now to give your life to Jesus. And if you do not, you are going to go through your entire life with a black, tiny, shriveled heart. And nobody will ever love you. And you will find people who tell you they love you, but you will know deep down inside that they do not. Now, will you give your life to Jesus Christ?" And at that moment, I believed that he was telling the truth. I really thought, this is my crossroads, and I need to do it. But there's just this part of me that is contrarian. And so I said no. He said, okay. Went to bed, got up the next morning, we all packed up, we got on the boat, 6 hours back to Portland. We're about 3 hours, 4 hours into the boat ride back, and I finally break. Everybody on the boat hates me, they're all being mean to me, and I decide, fuck it. I'm going to give my life to Jesus. And so it's this 3-story boat, and I go down to where all the luggage is, sort of the basement of the boat. I don't know what you call the basement of the boat. And there's really nobody there, and so I find a place where nobody can see me, and I do what everybody's been telling me to do all week. I get down on my knees, I put my hands out the way I'm told to, and I say, Jesus, I'm ready. I am 100% sincere. Please fill my heart. And then, nothing happened. And to me, the reason for this is obvious. That God and Jesus have rejected me. Which is weird, because Jesus' whole thing, that's like his whole spiel, that he will forgive and love you no matter what. But he won't love me. And at that moment, just like the weight of everything that happened over the past week just finally caught up, and I just broke down sobbing. Uncontrollably. And I don't know how long I was crying before I felt somebody tap me on the shoulder, and I looked up, and it is the girl in the Dodgers cap. And she sort of said, "What's wrong?" And I sort of explained to her in a confessional way, like, I've given myself to Jesus and he's rejected me and he wants nothing to do with me. And she looks at me for a minute, and then she leans down until she's really close to my face and she says, "Don't worry, it's all going to be okay." And then she leans in and she kisses me. And it is warm, and it is wet, and it is sexy, and it is loving, and it feels amazing. And then she sits down beside me, and she holds my hand, sort of that way you do, where your fingers interlock. And we don't say anything. And for the next hour, we just sort of sit there holding hands until the boat gets into Portland, and we get off of it. And I never see her again. And I'm a little confused, right? I don't know to this day, like, did I never know her name? Did I know her name, but now I've forgotten it? I don't know. I go back, within 2 weeks after getting there, everybody who I've gone with has renounced Jesus. I go to school in the fall, and I find I'm the cool guy because I was the one guy, because nobody knows that I caved. I'm the one guy who wouldn't cave, and I'm the cool guy at school, and nobody at school ever finds out. And it's amazing, except for this one tiny thing. That last night, what the old man said, when he said, if I didn't believe then, I would never believe, it turns out that was 100% true. And I have actually spent most of my adult life wanting to believe in something higher. In general, I witnessed both of my parents go through really agonizing, painful deaths, long-term suffering, and I've always wanted to find something that I could believe in, where I might believe that it's all worth something, but I can't. It just seems like I'm not wired that way. And the old man was right. I just cannot believe in anything higher. But that kiss, that one kiss that night on the boat, I believe in that kiss to the bottom of my black, tiny, shrunken heart.
Thank you, Tod Kelly.
Am I getting up here? Is that what I'm doing?
Yeah, you
All
are.
right.
Now, it says here you were indicted in New York City 3 days ago on federal sex crime. That's R. Kelly, not
I was gonna worry because I was gonna ask it, but I'm happy you got into it. Are you gonna change the name or in light of events?
No.
William Cosby.
I feel like I'm older than R. Kelly, and so it's mine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like I had this first.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you the same question I asked D. Martin Austin, and the question about your name. The same thing, if I were to meet the actress Epatha Murkison, I actually don't know what the first name is. Is it S or Epatha for you? Do I just call you Tod or do I call you R?
You call me Tod.
Okay. I've never, 44, no one's actually ever just said this is how that works with that kind of a name.
No, so I can only explain for me.
Okay.
So here's the way it works for me. Real quick. My parents named me after each of my grandfathers, Robert Burns, Tod Kelly. They knew that they wanted to call me Tod. They thought Tod Robert Kelly sounded horrible. They liked Robert Tod. I've been called Tod all my life. Here's the thing. I now put R in front of my name because if you don't, everybody you do business with, credit cards companies, banks, everything, they think you're trying to con them when you fill out forms saying Robert, but you go by Tod.
Interesting.
That is the entire reason they do it.
Wow. Interesting, frustrating, but I understand it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If I said call me Carl, people would look at me like I'm nuts.
Right.
Right. Okay. So you have. Let's start with this first question on my mind. You have been called the unofficial godfather of Portland storytelling.
Have I?
Yes.
Okay.
By the woman who runs
Erica Worth.
Thank you. There
Yeah,
you go.
okay.
Is this news to you?
That I'm the godfather of storytelling?
That you've been called the unofficial. I don't think you actually are, but you've been.
What would make someone
I'm
be
not trying to
official?
build your ego up here. Actually, I'm questioning what is it like to have such a title that no one can actually live up to.
It is a responsibility because should the parents of storytelling ever pass away?
Right?
Yeah. God forbid.
Which then begs a whole new question: who are those people, and where are they?
I don't know.
You have a penchant for interviewing some of our culture's most on the
Awful?
edge, awful. There you go. That's part of my second question. So tell me, who are these people that you interview?
So, for those of you who don't know, I do long-form journalism for magazines. My beat, as it were, I get hired to do stories on people who are at the very fringes of society. So, con men, political extremists, grand wizards, Scientologists, just sort of people who live outside normal day-to-day society.
I like grand wizards, Scientologists. That seems like a good combination of things. How do you have compassion for the people that you write about?
It depends on person. There are a lot of people that I write about where I don't feel any compassion. I feel empathy.
Mm-hmm.
I feel empathy. It feels important to me if I ever do a story on anybody. It's important for me that whoever reads the story understands their humanity no matter what they've done, no matter what they believe. But more than that, the thing that I've learned since I've been doing this is you take like the folks who took over the camp in Eastern Oregon, the Bundys,
Okay.
or a grand wizard, or an exorcist, or these people. Once you start to get to know them, and once you start to figure out how did they get the way they are, you begin to realize how frighteningly little separates us from them. We have a tendency to think like they're wired completely different, and I would never. But as you get to know them, you realize like, you know what? It wouldn't have taken much to make any of us go down the roads that they did. And I find that fascinating.
I find that frightening. I was expecting you to say, "Oh, they are." That's a little alarming. So, have you figured out what happened? Or do people have like an event where they just say, "No, I'm going to accept that part into my life"?
I think it depends entirely upon the people. And most of the people I deal with are the leaders of this movement. And for them, if there is a single common denominator, it is probably that the thing they want most in the world is to be famous.
Interesting.
And that clouds every other thing that they do. And they've attempted to sort of do that in other ways, and they've sort of lacked the talent or the vision. And whatever fringe movement that they are now in charge of generally tend to be things that they stumbled into and were rewarded from other people for doing what they were doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Troubling too, though.
Do you find you spoke about religion obviously in your story, do you find a similarity with that and I guess religious leaders? Because that's kind of, as someone who was involved in the church, what turned me off about my church is it felt like some of the people in there is like my pastor drove like 2 Mercedeses. It was like, yeah, Jesus for sure would have 2 Mercedes. Yeah. I remember the part of Matthew where he he went through the church and threw all the stuff down and then drove off in his Mercedes. And
Right. And most of the people, I mean, so I'm trying to think of exactly how to, if I tend to do a story on somebody who's a religious leader, they tend to be a religious leader who asks the people who follow them to do highly unusual and very strange and extreme things. And, you know, their followers do.
Well, speaking of extreme things, my next question was about you were writing for Marie Claire, and you were is the right term embedded with the Trump campaign, or?
Not embedded. Not embedded. No. So the story. So real quick background for everybody. I had worked on a bunch of stories in a row, and I decided to take a few months off in the summer to focus on some other things. And I got a call from my editor, Marie Claire, which is unusual. She never calls me. And she says, "We want you to get on a plane and do a story." And I was like, "I'm sorry, but I am exhausted, and I promised my wife I was going to take time off, and so I don't care what the story is." And she was like, "Well, we'd like you to go on the road with the Trump campaign." And I was like, "I will pack my bags now." Because it was, at the time, it was such a weird, bizarre campaign. And it felt impossible that he'd even been nominated. It was right before the Republican convention. And so I got on a plane and tried to figure out a story, which ended up being a story about the women who supported him and why. Mm-hmm. If you were a woman, would you do that? And so I never met with Trump himself, but I met with the people, and I talked with the people that surrounded him. Mm-hmm. And it was surreal, and if I'm being honest, it's the most fun I've ever had doing this story.
And what I think I would be scared thinking of what I was going to be revealing to the world. What made it fun?
Well, first of all, understand, this is back in June and July of 2016. We didn't think he'd win.
Right. Yeah, it was so far out.
The campaign was chaos. Like, nobody in the campaign knew who worked for the campaign. I'm serious. Like, you'd ask an official person, like, when is his next stop? And they would say, oh, his next stop will be in San Diego. And then you'd talk to somebody else and say, no, San Diego was last week. And then you'd talk to another person, like, he was never going to say, like, it was utter chaos. And every single thing where you would talk to somebody or you'd witness something happen, it was, can I give you a quick anecdote?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm at the Republican convention, and there's this rally for Trump supporters. And if you don't remember, back in 2016, the Republicans themselves were not sure how they felt about it. So Trump had a separate rally a little ways away in Cleveland from where the main convention was. And it had folks like Milo Yiannopoulos and Alex Jones and other people who were, what's the word, just batshit crazy.
Like Woodstock, the white supremacy.
So, and I was at the thing, and there's this, if you don't know who Alex Jones is, he's a shock jock, crazier than a bag of weasels on meth. And he's up on stage, and he's just shouting incoherently to this audience of really all white, all male Trump supporters who come from all over the country. And in the middle of his ranting, he stops because he sees somebody in the crowd, and he's trying to remember, it's the new guy at the Daily Show. It's like, he finally figures, it's Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah's in the crowd. And he invites Trevor Noah to come up on stage and fight him. And so he sends security out, and they get Trevor Noah, and they pull him up on stage, and once he gets on stage, it's clear that it is not Trevor Noah. It is a guy who's black and wearing a suit who looks nothing like Trevor Noah.
Oh,
but
man.
Sort of the whole Trump rally thing was, he's black, he's in a suit, he's not Ben Carson. Who else could he be? And they're just yelling at him, trying to get him to admit that he's Trevor Noah. I'm not. And he begins to sort of spout all of this stuff about, no, I follow you, I love you, 9/11 was an inside job, chemtrails, and finally Alex Jones gets this thing, right, where he's like, oh, maybe this isn't Trevor Noah. And then he says, okay, I guess you're a fan of mine. And then he says, would you like to talk to the crowd and tell why you're here? The guy says, yeah. And then, with that look of like, when you hand at a wedding the microphone to the drunk brother-in-law and you don't know what he's going to say in the toast. He hands it to this guy, and this guy says, yeah, we're here because my wife and I are big fans, and we're swingers, and my wife loves you, and we were really hoping to meet and see if you wanted to. And then security is off, and they're like taking him from the stage, and they go on, and that was like, that is the entire Trump campaign in one anecdote.
Sure. That sounds like the worst acid trip ever.
The best for somebody. Oh my God. So, thank you for asking permission to tell that anecdote. So, what a fantastic story. So you are filled with stories. How did you get started telling as a storyteller?
Accident. Oh, I'm so sorry. No, it's okay. A friend of my wife's was over for dinner one night, and she said, we're going to this thing called The Moth. Do you want to come? Went to The Moth, threw my name in on a whim. I didn't have a story to tell, but I threw my name in anyway. I got called. It did well. So I started going back, and I started winning. And then I got asked to do this show by Kevin Allison called Risk. And then once I'd done Risk, a guy from McMinimans who had seen me both at The Moth and at Risk was talking to me, and he said, like, we're looking for live events at the Mission Theater. Do you want to produce an entire show? And it's just such a weird thing to be asked. I was like, yeah. Right? I had no idea how to do that, but yeah, sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how long ago was that?
That was almost 4 years ago.
Wow. And so in 4 years, you've become the unofficial godfather of Portland storytelling. So what is it about storytelling that you enjoy? What keeps you coming back to it?
A number of things. If I'm being honest, a lot of it has to do with the people that we work with. We get to work with an amazing array of artists and musicians, because we have music in our shows, and writers, comics, other people, and it's amazing to get to know them. My partner, Alina Aliar, makes doing work fun. So part of it is that I just love the process. But on a more sort of meta level, I think there's something about when we get up and we tell stories, whether it's sort of formally in a microphone with an audience, or you're just sitting around having beers or breaking bread. I think there's something about it that fosters empathy, and it makes connections, whether people are looking for those connections or not. The thing that we say with all of our main stage stories is that we want them, like, we want everybody in the audience to simultaneously say, like, holy shit, that is so weird. I've never done anything like that. I will never do anything like that. But at the same time, paradoxically, we want them to say, oh my God, I know exactly what they're talking about. I have so been there.
Interesting. That's a really great idea to help tell a story of making it familiar, but also something unique and different. So when is your next storytelling event?
So we have a number of different kinds. Our next is on the 31st. It is our Pants on Fire show, which, like you said, 7 storytellers. They each tell 5 quick-minute stories. 6 of them are true. 1 is wrong. If you're in the audience and you can correctly guess who the liar of that evening is, you have a chance to win a stay at the Edgefield. And then after that, we'll be in Tacoma for our main stage show, which is a more formal, with music, scored music, coach storytelling, sort of a longer form storytelling.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
And when is that in Tacoma?
And that is Tacoma on August 12th.
Awesome. Fantastic. So how can people stay in touch with you and follow you on social media and whatnot?
So probably you can follow us on Instagram at PDXSins. You can also go to our website, 7deadlysinshow.org, and know what all of our shows are. And you can also follow us on Facebook.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And that sound means it's time for our next My Real Portland questionnaire. Todd, are you ready?
Yes.
What's your favorite smell in Portland?
My favorite smell is the South food cart. They make these po' boys with duck sausages, and I could eat them all day.
Wow. Duck sausages.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Is it duck and pig together?
No,
Or is it just a duck?
just duck.
Duck.
It's phenomenal. Like if you've never been to South Food Cart, you need to go.
Where is this?
It is. Is it the Hawthorne Annex on? Which is
Asylum.
Oh, it's at the
Hawthorne
Asylum.
Asylum. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Which is actually on Madison or on Madison.
Yeah, it's not on the
Yeah.
Asylum, yeah. What's your favorite sound in Portland?
Oh, you know what? Timbers Army.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course.
Because
Yeah, it took me a second.
yeah, because you can go to a Portland Timbers game, like they're in last place and they're playing another terrible team, and the Timbers Army, just the sound of them makes it feel like this is a World Cup game.
It's still just festive.
Yeah.
At the utmost.
It's
every
just
single
the
time.
Timbers Army, listening to them makes me happy.
What's your favorite bridge in Portland?
I don't know if this counts because it's not there anymore, but Selwood, the old Selwood.
Oh, the old. I was gonna say. Yeah, the old Selwood.
Yeah, it was beautiful and it was old school. It was classic.
It felt like you were taking your life into your own hands every time you crossed it. That was
That was
part
part of it. Yeah.
It was like a risk. It was the unknown. Would I die? What famous Portlandian would you most like to meet?
Oh, that's tough. Probably Chuck Palahniuk.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and you haven't.
I have not yet met him. I would
Yeah.
love to meet him though.
That's a great answer. I love that. Where?
He's insanely talented.
Well, I thought you were going to start stuff and insane.
Possibly.
Yeah. Where are we most likely to find you for a weekend brunch in Portland?
Either at my house or maybe actually across the street here at Tusk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lovely. If you could rename any street in Portland, which street would you rename?
So I'm going to go ultra obscure here. Can I do that? Portland
Absolutely.
obscure.
Yeah.
I would rename Northeast Broadway Margaret Carter Boulevard.
Okay, I'm down with Northeast Broadway. Tell us about Margaret Carter.
Margaret Carter is she's a woman. She's worked for the city of Portland. She was congressperson. She was senator, state senator. Throughout the 80s, the 90s, the aughts, I don't know of any single person, public servant, who's worked more tirelessly for Portland. I think she's also sort of like the first person of color to be a congressperson, the first in Oregon, the first to be on the Senate. Like, she was sort of a person who was ahead of her time in a number of different ways. And I think she shaped this city in a way that I think she deserves to have a street named after.
And no recognition so far. No parks. No city.
No, I don't know that.
Interesting.
I think that she was something like 20 years ago, everybody knew who Margaret Carter was.
Right.
And today, if I ever mention her, no one's. So I think she needs a street so that legacy can sort of live on. Because we don't have a lot of public servants like that anymore.
I think that's a great answer. If you were a tree, which Portland park would you be planted in?
Cooch.
Cooch Park in Northwest Portland.
Cooch Park in Northwest Portland.
Mine. My dad.
I lived across the street from it, and I love all of Portland parks, but that's the only park that had a significant role in my life for a very long period of time. I would lived across it. I played pickup basketball from the time I was like 21 to the time I was 30. pretty much every night there.
Wow.
It has a sentimental value to me that, if I'm being honest, it's probably the trashiest looking park in Portland. It is, but I love it.
That's
I
hard
love
to do.
it.
Very hard to do.
Right. Well, it is. It's one of those that does need a little TLC.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. All right. Anything else for Tod before he gets out of here?
You look fantastic.
I get so tired of hearing that. Thank you.
All right, one more time for Tod Kelly. So, My Real Portland is brought to you by me, Joseph Lyons, realtor in the streets, podcaster in the sheets.
Oh, yeah.
I help home buyers and sellers across the Portland metro area make their real dreams become real estate.
Real estate.
Learn more about me at josephlyons.com.
.com.
So, My Real Portland is also brought to you by advertising sponsors, and this entire season is sponsored as a My Real Portland Rose City sponsor, Cooper Realty. Cooper Realty's Ernest Cooper and his Northwest Portland boutique agency represents homeowners and home buyers all across the Portland metro area. From a duplex at 39th and Holgate to a single-level ranch in Rock Creek and a historic Oregon City Victorian mansion. Cooper Realty's one-on-one approach to real estate has closed 555 transactions over the past 18 years. Contact Ernest Cooper at 503-515-8426 or visit CooperRealtyLLC.net to learn more.
Advertisement.
Okay, welcome to My Real Portland, the game show.
Yeah.
Your names are, say them into the mics.
Creme brulee.
Creme brulee. And Aaron, all right, so those are going to be your buzzers, and they're going to come in handy in just a moment. So, it's my birthday month, and that means that all my questions this evening are going to be about famous events in Portland history during the summer. So, are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, all right. So, let's do a test question. I was born on my mom's birthday. What month was she born in?
Creme brulee.
Creme brulee.
July.
July, that's correct. Okay, so that's how we play the game. All right, that was just test question. The Waterfront Blues Festival occurs in Portland over the 4th of July weekend. Waterfront Park is named for what Oregon governor?
Creme brulee.
Creme brulee.
Tom McCall.
Tom McCall is correct. Fantastic. All right, so one on the board for creme brulee. The Albina riot of 1967 took place on July 30th, 1967. 150 people had gathered at Irving Park to hear Black Panther Party's Eldridge Cleaver speak. He didn't show any threats of violence, but heavy police presence led to a riot. What northeast neighborhood is Irving Park in? Irving Park. Irving. It's a trick question. It's Irvington. I know, right? Vortex 1, a biodegradable festival of life, took place in Estacada in what year? You can both answer. The closest answer will win.
2000.
Okay.
1980.
It was 1970, actually. So congratulations, you're both on the board. The Portland Adult Soapbox Derby has happened every year since 1997. In which Portland Park?
What is going on in this city?
Aaron. Aaron.
What's the event you said?
It's the Portland Adult Soapbox Derby.
So it's only for adults. Children are not welcome to the soapbox derby. So it's a nudity soapbox derby. Like that's what's going on here.
No, why would you assume that?
It's just
It's
no
like an
kids.
extreme sport. Okay, so the answer is Mount Tabor because they're going down the mountain.
Okay.
Very good.
You don't want the kids out of
I
there.
get-
It's not like Zubon.
You just hear about the things that go on in the city. It's like whatever, man. Y'all are just making shit up.
Hey, after that, you can go to the of the chicken beauty contest.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was up there earlier.
Talking about sidekicks, Doc Severinsen was born July 7th, 1927 in Arlington, Oregon. What show was he the band leader of? Oh my gosh, I was afraid of this. The other night I was talking about band leaders and sidekicks with Creme Brulee, and I mentioned Doc Severinsen. No, not Doc Severinsen. Paul Shvvvr. Just right over. Then he mentioned Reggie Watson. I'm like, okay, we're on the same page. Yeah, Doc Severinsen predated Paul Shvvvr by several years. The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
Is that a band?
What's that?
Is that a band? The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Is that like a... Is that really sweet? Caroline?
No, that was him. No, Doc Severinsen. He didn't have anything famous, no. Okay, so in 1926, owners of silent movie theaters from Los Angeles to Seattle opened a 1,500-seat theater in Northeast Portland, causing the neighborhood to change the name of their neighborhood after the theater. What neighborhood are we in? Aaron. Hollywood Theater. And Hollywood neighborhood is correct, so you are on the board with 2 points. And this is our last question. Oregon will release new license plates next month, featuring which woodland firefighting creature?
Firefighting creature?
Yeah.
I'm excited for this answer because I'm about to learn that thing.
Is this the zoo?
Oh my gosh.
Squirtle?
No. Okay. So Aaron, you've won the game. But I don't think anyone know who the woodland creature is. Yes, everyone just yell it out. Smokey the Bear.
Oh my God. I was thinking right to the way to
Which animation? Yeah. Okay.
It's 2019.
Well, you both win pint glasses. You'll get your prices after the show. We'll do that again. You're welcome. Thank you for coming out and playing. All right. Now, my final guest is a musician. He's a community organizer. He's an educator. He's a radio host. He is just a fantastic person. He's performed with Obo Addy and currently performs with Massamba Diop and Baba Mal's band and other local projects, Shvvvr, Wamba, Tropical Storm, and this is where I met him. He's the co-host of KWU's Prison Pipeline, a show that educates listeners about the criminal justice system. Please welcome to the My Real Portland stage, Adam Carpinelli. Fantastic. All right. So, Adam, thank you for joining us here on My Real Portland. You've been doing radio for how long?
About 20 years.
20 years. What got you started doing radio?
When I moved to Portland, actually, I was looking for stuff to do, and I've always been a musician, so I guess that was part of it. Was like I love music, so I figured, which was very naive at the time because of things that were happening at the time and up until now, that you just go on the radio and play whatever you want, and so. Then I started to realize how the walls had been closing down on everybody. However, then I started learning about community radio.
Right.
So before that, though, was looking at, I did an internship with a CBS station here that was a couple, KUPL.
Oh, yeah.
And KKJZ, Smooth Jazz. 106.7. And I'm a huge jazz fan. And there was a guy who worked there by the name of Gordon Lee.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was Gordon Lee, who's a local jazz pianist. And I was like, so I'm doing this intern at this jazz station, and Gordon Lee's there, and I go there, and it's a corporate station, and I didn't know what the fuck smooth jazz was, and then adult contemporary, and it was like, I was like, wow. So I learned a lot about the industry, right? And that was also around the same time that CBS had merged with Viacom, and as we know now, we're stuck with what, like 2 radio conglomerates or something. So, you know.
So you still get on the radio and talk about prison reform, and you've been actually not doing that just on the radio, but you've been doing that in other aspects of your life as well, working on it. How did that come about?
So, yeah, the show is Prison Pipeline on KBOO every Monday, and it's a collective show. And I was kind of recruited at some point in time in the last, I don't even know now, probably 8 to 10 years, to be on the show because I was doing active work, or still doing active work around mass incarceration, prison industrial complex, also political prisoners. And some of it's not less even like a prison reform thing than it's really talking about like prison abolition and aspects of really, you know, a deeper understanding of the whole thing. So,
the entire system that allows the
kind of bringing the whole thing down, because really prisons are just a part of the whole larger system of capitalism, white supremacy, and everything else that's just running the planet. So.
Right. So you started doing music, not necessarily talking about prison reform. That wasn't your introduction.
Oh no,
so
no.
When got you started caring about what was happening in prisons?
Well, I think my trajectory was, I grew up in Northern Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C., I guess, and kind of growing up with a lot of, you know, like anywhere else in America, you know, but all the lies and stuff. And I think D.C. is another good place to unearth all of those lies and trickery, because it's all there, and also because there's the whole counter narrative is there, like the Civil War, and you see all the bourgeois houses, you know, for all the old presidents and stuff like that, and like the whole shit. So, you know, and then kind of realizing that was all farce in the first place. I think part of that was just getting into community organizing, and kind of seeing people getting locked up actually for political activity and getting involved with a lot of those cases. So when we talk about political prisoner rights, you know, it's a human rights issue. So that kind of led to that, and then from there learning more and more just about the whole prison system and, you know, the problems with that, but also looking at it as it's also a very political place as well. Not to just say, I mean, it's all incarceration is political, but also there have been political people and still political people who get locked up and who have been locked up for a long time. Those are the cases that a lot of people forget. So I'll talk about some of the work that I do to people, and they'll say like, oh, political prisoners, like in Burma. And I'm like, well, yeah. And, you know, in the United States, and they're long-term USL political prisoners from revolutionary nationalist armed struggle, some of them.
Right.
You know, and some of them were really, could almost say prisoners of war as part of the countries that they were involved with, like in the 60s and 70s, into the 80s too. Some stuff later on too, but definitely from that period.
What are other misconceptions a lot of people have, things like something like that,
About the political prisoner cases?
or just the prison industrial
Oh, the whole
complex at all?
thing.
I mean, as someone who knows a lot of that.
Oh yeah, I mean, it always goes back to some of the same cliche stuff where it's like people are talking about prisons, like people have a big privilege inside. You know, oh, they get a couple meals a day, and they're like working out, like watching TV and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, and also that, you know, while they're they're doing those kind of things, you know, that, you know, people are maybe lazy and not trying to do things that also like uplift themselves, because, you know, we also find like when it comes to like music, art, activism, comedy, political thought, right? Some of the greatest minds have been locked up throughout, you know, human history in a sense, you know, some of the most genius minds. And what that means, that's also like the key to unlocking like the whole prison industrial complex and even our consciousness sort of around it. So I think people bring those things up a lot, and also forget that the money that gets spent on all these, you know, building prisons and having guards and having this really authoritarian system is wasted. Meanwhile, people are not really getting like, you know, education, doing programs and stuff like that. And that's also some things that I'm involved with, is even trying to bring that inside. Because when you look at the statistics about, you know, quote unquote recidivism in America, that people that go through programs, you know, education programs, social programs, music programs, there's a way less rate that people, you know, end up doing what they were doing in the first place. I mean, that's kind of the part of the whole deal, you know.
You mentioned music programs, and I assume that you've probably done some music programs working with people that might be in the prison system or might be at risk of being, you know, in indoctrinated or in that world. That's not the right word, but you know,
it's a good way of thinking of it too. It's like we're subject to the king's, you know, rule, right?
Right.
It's not wrong.
Which are king in quotes, right? It's like, you know,
so
clown, but.
So how do you bring music into working with people who are in prisons?
Sure. One of the main ways that I've been doing it recently in the last few years, and it's a little bit more recent for my life. Well, in general, is working with incarcerated youth, and that program is called Keys Beats Bars. So there's a dual meaning there.
Mm-hmm.
Keys Beats Bars. So if you look at that up, keysbeatsbars.com, or if you're on YouTube and you put Keys Beats Bars, we just have a promotional video that just went up when we did a fundraiser. So the idea with this program is that it's a music program. What's unique about it is that it's specifically, you know, free for incarcerated youth in Oregon. You know, I say Oregon because that's, you know, where we are. Ideally, we do it everywhere, but it's capacity. And then also for underserved youth in the larger Portland area at different, you know, for different programs with different organizations. But mainly right now we're doing it at McLaren Youth Correctional Facility in Woodburn, Oregon. It's about half an hour out of here. So if you're not familiar with the landscape, Oregon incarcerates the highest amount of youth per capita in the whole country. And if you're familiar with Measure 11, these are kind of the mandatory sentence minimum type laws and stuff, really heinous laws and stuff. So that's really one of the roots of the problem. But of course, we talked about the disparities, and it affects, you know, certain populations the most. And of course, there are people of color, because the whole prison industrial complex is set up to really be a form of neo-slavery anyhow. So of course, we're recreating that in, you know, in the Oregon's, you know, history of being some kind of white utopia or whatnot. So Keys Beats Bars is a rejection of all that, and trying to bring music in and have people learn about music in different ways. So it's a multicultural program, it's arts integrated, so it incorporates everything from art, you want to learn an instrument, but also trying to make sure that it's culturally responsive in the way that we also have people who might have those experiences, if possible, be it incarcerated or friends and family member or formerly incarcerated persons. Right. And also just to say that that they might resonate with those cultures too. And what I mean by that is, yeah, like just, you know, not only, you know, white Eurocentric Western music education, and be able to bring in, you know, everything from, you know, I mean, African native drumming to, you know, some of those kind of aspects of music that gets left out in a lot of popular music education, right?
Right.
So it's kind of part of the whole big picture. It's not just about, you know, what we learn in schools and stuff. So, you know, how we understand music.
Well, and you have experience working with world musicians, or musicians across the world. It's weird to say world musicians. We have a certain idea of what world music sounds like, right?
Right.
But we're talking about real musicians from around the world. You worked for a number of years with Obo Addy.
I did.
Tell us about that.
Well, if people aren't familiar with Obo Addy, just to say, he passed away a few years ago. He was about 75. He's a master drummer from Ghana, West Africa, who moved here in the 70s. As a result of him, you know, traveling the world with his music and stuff. He's from a famous music and dance, you know, family. So he's a master drummer. He wrote his own music. He had a world beat band, and then he had a drumming and dance troupe. So when I moved to Portland, and I was just trying to get into working on different music, and I loved African music, but I didn't really know much about it. And so then to meet, you know, him, and of course he had nephews and nieces, and all these people who are still around today doing that stuff, and they're drummers and dancers and musicians. So I was just kind of fortunate, I think, to kind of like come into Portland at a time where that whole thing was kind of happening. Because because even in Portland at a certain time, like, I don't know, like kind of early 2000s, and then people started getting into kind of like Brazilian and Cuban stuff, which is great too, but it was like, it was a little bit more vibrant with the whole African music scene because of Obo, and he did the Humwo Festival, which was a festival that was downtown Portland, Park Block. So I played guitar in his world beat band, and studied, you know, here in Portland with members of the family, and also in Ghana doing percussion stuff. So for a while I was kind of like not really even playing a lot of guitar and just getting into like more drumming and things like that, just learning about different styles of music.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
Obo's the best, yeah.
So how often did you go to Ghana? Were you said you went there?
Man, I was in my 20s. I went there a couple
Okay, wow.
times and stuff. Like this
He was
one time in my
Ghana.
early 30s. So yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
And so your most recent work that's coming out now ish
Yep.
now, today-ish,
On.
today.
On.
Shvvvr. Tell
Yeah.
us about how is, it sounds like another group of people that you're working with. It sounds like
Yeah.
you often are working with collaborations
Yeah.
with people. So who all is part of Shvvvr?
Yeah, so Shvvvr is name of a new project, and it's an album. It's literally out today partially because of you. It's all your fault. The show, so I thought, hey, 14th. I mean, we were just, it's one of those things you get close to the release date. It's like, what is it? Also turned out it's Bastille Day, so hey.
Happy
you know,
Bastille Day.
Storm the walls, you know what I mean? Tear the whole thing down, you know what I mean? Seriously. And chop off some heads and shit, you know what I mean? Because, you know, it worked then, you know, so it's like, heads still chop off. I'm just saying, you know. It just happens, it's a thing, you know what I mean? You know, we'll start to see guillotines around somewhere. Sorry, I had to drop that one. So, but yeah, all new tunes. I composed everything, so this is like a project that was like less collaborative. Usually I'm in groups where, you know, we started together and da-da-da. So this came from my whole shtick, you know. And the title track of the album is the first tune on the album and everything. And most of it's instrumental, the album, you know, Shvvvr. The first tune is sung by lyricist Birdside. And when I planned the song out, the whole idea was to kind of encompass a few major things in the verses, you know. So houselessness, prison industrial complex, you know, kind of police shooting, kind of stuff like that. And there's also some rap too that talks about some other things, but that was kind of the idea. And when I was thinking about what I would call like that song or the album, you know, it just kind of struck me, man, because like all this stuff, if you really are a feeling person, like it really does make you shiver. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like, you know, when it's cold and everything. So, and of course, you know, because we're in the 21st century, you can't spell anything normal anymore. So of course, I spell it Shvvvr. You know, so Shvvvr. You know, .com if you're looking up Shvvvr. And the musicians who were on there, I mentioned Gordon Lee, who, you know, I knew about him when I moved to Portland in the jazz scene, and he's amazing pianist. He's so badass, and I love him. And I met him in Mountain Community College when I was studying there, and he like was like my friend and everything. I mean, still is. And at one point, I was playing him some other stuff we were doing. He said, "Oh, man, I'll play with you guys sitting here." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Well, I'm doing this album, man. Like, what do you think?" You know what I mean? So him, and then there's some other local musicians who are younger. You know, Michael Galen, who's just like amazing. Like, he's into the whole dance thing. He's just like professional dancer. He's on drum set on the album. He also does percussion. You know, he's from this group that's called Pop Goji. And so what's interesting is the bass player met him from the project. His name's Michael Doherty, who's now playing in Pop Goji. And the singer Renata Austin, which I think we might get to listen to one of the tunes with her. You know, she's on there from the group. So it's almost like I inadvertently, this little Pop Goji splinter thing, I don't know, came off. So horn players, Adrian Baxter, who came from the Cherry Poppin' Daddies. Malcolm Lewis, who's, I don't know, like, I feel like he's this local cat. People should know who he is, but he's maybe not.
What was the name again?
Malcolm Lewis, tenor sax. He's just like my favorite sax player, but he was a younger cat too, you know. And then Terry Baber, who is this masterful trombone player. He also plays steel pan and like conch shells. Not on the album, he plays trombone on the album. He came from Sam Rivers' band, and I didn't meet him, but I saw him play with Sam Rivers' band, big band, in Orlando, Florida years ago when I would go visit my family and stuff to see Sam Rivers. And when he moved out here, I was like, "What have you been up to, man?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I was playing at Sam Rivers' band." I said, "Hey, you gotta talk, man." So, and then there's also another upright bass player. His name's Alex Gates, who's in town, who's amazing. And then singing, I mentioned Larissa Birdside, I think she's getting a lot of attention now. She's awesome. And then also Mike Crenshaw, who raps on one of the tunes.
He was a guest on the show in March.
Yeah, Mike's, you know, again, another person who, I mean, he's my friend, but also like kind of seeing what he was doing many years ago. And I think that also got me into a lot of stuff that I'm doing with some of the youth advocacy and things like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's listen to the first track from Shvvvr.
That's it.
real traps and they will cats. Slide by way, find you a place. Side where they take, side through the rain. Psychotic break, time Monday night. Thought he would be tight, how he gonna take it? How to interrupt this? Beat, smiling erupted. Yeah. That's the way you hate me, the whole thing. You shooting rampage every goddamn day. I can criticize the land and the minds of the clan. But I can't surprise haters on the rise again. Prior to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. Iraq, Iran, Vietnam, Afghanistan. And the bombs that keep falling is this called part of the plan.
When the moon gets to people living in the street now. The bullets on the rock for all of them. We have become a cry. You will not take all I can give. Honestly, that I have lived. But someday I really regret it. We didn't meditate to it tonight.
Man, Larissa's voice is extraordinary.
Really different genre for her too, because she's like full kind of style,
Yeah, and just
more
the,
jazzy or something on this one.
the breathiness in her voice. And do you do all the, is that all of your composition, writing, and
She co-wrote the lyrics with me, because I wanted it to kind of be that way actually, where I was like I said, I had the whole concept, I got the whole album, everything, and the name, but I still wanted it to be a little bit like, you know what I'm saying, she had some poetic license to the lyrics. And actually I met her inadvertently, was through kind of some of my activism.
Mhm.
I don't think she remembers that actually, but that's another story, but anyhow, yeah.
it's a small world. You know, we
Small.
tend to have met people
Yeah.
all over the place.
About 5 degrees of separation here.
So, tell us about the work you do with Massamba Diop.
Yeah, Massamba Diop is also a master drummer from Senegal, and people would know him from two different things. He's from Baba Maul's band. Baba Maul is the singer, is the name of the band, is really one of the biggest bands of, with, and from known from Africa. They had their 40th anniversary last year in 2018. So we were signed with like Island Records with Bob Marley like back in the day. And he plays this very particular kind of talking drum, very different from if you knew what Obo Addy played, the Ghanaian or Nigerian version. Really tiny talking drum. And he's like really one of the foremost masters of this drum. He comes from a griot family among the Wolof people of Senegal. And the second way people would know him is when you hear Prince Chikala's Walking Out, you know, theme song on the Black Panther soundtrack. That's Massamba playing on there.
Wow.
Yeah. So I linked up with him some years ago. It was before Black Panther. I always knew Baba Maul's band. I didn't know people from the band, and just from being kind of a musician who works kind of in world music, really with the focus on African music, working with African musicians, and just kind of through life, and we became like really good friends. And he comes to Portland a lot actually. He was just here, and he'll be back in August. So we set up a bunch of different gigs, festivals and stuff in the Northwest, club gigs and all that. So.
Have you ever heard of the Lajadu sisters?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah, the Nigerian
Have you?
twins. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Very rare.
Yeah.
They were the very first tape that I ever owned. My Aunt Lucy gave it to me.
Really, your first?
My very first tape, right? And no one knows who the Lajadu sisters is.
You know what I'm saying?
Lajadu sisters are twin sisters from Ghana, I believe. Nigeria, okay. And they had this big family with lots of kids and whatnot. And this album from the late 70s that somehow I got a hold of, and like I know every song by the back of my hand, but it's all in African stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know any of the
There's
words.
a lot of beautiful music out there that people just don't know about.
So when you're creating music, what is your do you have a particular way you do it? Does it just come to you sometimes? Do you have to sit down and actually work at it?
A lot of drugs.
Seems to be a common theme tonight.
What?
Yeah, I've dabbled, but no, it's not that. I think that probably, you know, it's a combination of just of life, you know, experiences, you know, and they come out to play, I guess, for me, you know, they come out through sound. You know, artists, visual artists, you're seeing green, you're seeing blue, or whatever, I guess I'm dealing with kind of tones, you know, and most of the time, things just kind of like pop in my head. And I think from my background, kind of doing like more like percussion and stuff like that, I get a lot of rhythmic ideas, and then I kind of figure out, you know, kind of like a melody or something. So it's an interesting process because a lot of musicians deal more with like an idea for a melody, and then figure out how the thing's going to be set up. So usually I set it up more rhythmically, but then every once in a while I'll get some weird little melody thing in my brain or whatever, and I'm actually self-taught, so I don't literally, you know, write out music and stuff, and even for Shvvvr, the generation of the charts that we used for the album was with the help of a friend of mine who sat me down, and I said, I got these chords, boom, 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 what's the note from the melody, and we worked it out, and he helped me write it down and stuff like that, yeah. So I was part of that process for Shvvvr, which I usually don't normally do stuff like that, because working with all these African cats, they're doing everything orally, boom, 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 and if you're not getting it right, you're getting it wrong, you know what I mean? And you just better figure it out, because nobody's gonna like hold your hand with it, you know, it's like a different thing. But even sometimes you have sheet music too, and musicians complain, so.
So we have a second track from you. Tell us about it. What are we gonna listen to?
So the next tune is titled Sueño Azul, and initially the title was in English, you know, which has kind of a Portlandy name. It's Blue Dream, and that does mean that the substance was involved at the time. What the hell is that? And so, however, there's a dual meaning too, because yeah, it's not just about this like, you know, particular strain of marijuana and how much somebody loves it.
It's about every strain of marijuana.
Yeah, it's about all of them. They shall be represented. But to say that, like, you know, there's that whole thing when, you know, people get high among other things or whatever it is, meditate, go walk in the woods or something. There's something going on with inspiration that's flowing around, right? And so sometimes smoke or sometimes mist, you know, because we're in the Northwest and things like that. You know, there's things going on there that inspire us. And so, the lyrics for this one, again, I had a lot of the ideas for it, but kind of wrote it down. It's translated into Spanish with a friend of mine. His name's Adolfo Cuellar from Thousand Fuegos. And I had approached him about, you know, just kind of helping me kind of co-write something in Spanish. It's a Latin-inspired tune. And so I also wanted to kind of like bring that in to those songs. And I guess being a native English speaker, sometimes, you know, hearing some of the song in Spanish or Portuguese is like so beautiful, especially doing tunes that are kind of like, that are Latin anyways. And so that was kind of the goal, because there's 3 tunes that are in Portuguese on the album. So yeah, this one's in Spanish. So, and this is Renata Austin singing it.
Cool.
Sueño Azul.
Música
like you said, there's going to be a Sade moment coming up, and there was a Sade moment coming up. I loved it.
When it got mastered, that's when he was talking about this. That sounds like Sade. Right on. It's like a huge compliment. Well, that's for her too. That's a compliment for her.
It was Shvvvr, right? Exactly. Any questions for?
You talked a lot about working with music from different cultures. I want to know, in particular, with African music, sonically, what attracts you to that sound and textures with that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think two parts. One thing is to say that as an American musician, and my heritage is European, it's Italian, Sicilian, Russian, Jewish, you know. But growing up in the United States, like all our music, you know, really rooted from African music. So I feel like that's always going to resonate. So the kind of syncopation we hear in funk, you know, the kind of riffing that we hear in jazz and blues, the kind of pentatonic, you know, scales and certain modes that are in the blues, you know, it always kind of went back to me with that. That's how I realized it too. And then even getting into musicians like John Coltrane, for example, who were also like folklorists, you know, with their music. And a lot of stuff that he was into, a lot of jazz guys were into the African thing and worked with African musicians. So that's one part. And the second one is also to say that some of the older music in the world, you know, comes from Africa. So I think there's ways that kind of also resonates as far as like, you know, deep roots of music expression. But also to say that, yeah, there's just like different instruments and genres that I just get to hear that are just amazing. But a lot of it is like the complicated rhythmic patterns, complicated to us, quote unquote, in the West, you know, that we're not used to, and not playing in like 4/4 and stuff like that, different modes and you know, different kind of tonations that we hear in some of the songs and things like that, you know, that come from like Africa and the Middle East, you know, that sometimes, you know, it's kind of like old scales and things like that.
Cool.
All right, where can we follow you, stay in touch with you?
Sure, so my full name is Adam Carpinelli, so you go adamcarpinelli.com. My last name is spelled CARPINELLI.com. I know that's long, I'm sorry. And then, yeah, I can't do my parents. I know, yeah, it's all their fault, damn it. And then I'm all, Facebook, Instagram, specifically with the whole Shvvvr thing. You look that up as well on Instagram, Facebook. Again, it's Shvvvr spelled with 3 V's, so SHVVVR.com. And like I said, definitely check out Keys Beats Bars because it's not only helping the youth, we also need help and also help to spread the word out too. So I want to mention that again, KeysBeatsBars.com.
Fantastic. All right. And Mungo Jerry says, it is our last Portland questionnaire of the evening. Mungo Jerry. Oh no. I actually had to look that up before. What's that?
Mungo stuff.
Mungo stuff, right? What's your favorite smell in Portland, speaking of mungo?
My favorite smell? Probably rosemary. There's like a shit ton of rosemary in town. A lot of lavender too, but I think rosemary wins.
Lavender Festival is going on over in Washington County, right?
Yeah, totally, yeah.
What's your favorite sound in Portland?
I know it's super cliche, but I always have to say like the rain. But I guess maybe we could get a little deeper and then not just say rain. Because you live other places in the country and rain. You know, here we get this like that mist thing sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like these light droplets. You know what I mean? That you don't get that in other places. So
No.
yeah.
I like that.
It's a darn shame you don't get that everywhere.
You really miss out.
Every place could just always be kind of raining. Just enough to make you question your entire day.
Why did I move here?
You're seeing flash floods everywhere else.
Right. What's your favorite bridge in Portland?
I like St. John's.
Oh, yeah.
Because drawbridges personally annoy me because they piss me off because I'm a driver, so that's one thing. And it's, you know, it's high enough, you know, so everything go under. But a great view from up there, and that's a pretty kind of old bridge as well. So
Yeah. What famous Portlandian would you most like to meet?
So if I can mention somebody who is deceased.
Absolutely.
Okay. I figured that was cool. I can
Yeah.
do whatever I want anyway. So.
No.
I know. Okay. Yeah. Hey, it's my shit, man. Jim Pepper is a Native American saxophonist, jazz saxophonist, he passed away even before my time. And actually I know about him because of Gordon Lee, you know, and Gordon Lee would tell me about him. And when I went to check out his stuff, I mean, just amazing. He was an amazing sax player, and you know, he was very into his culture as well, and trying to like incorporate that with jazz music, and also what we call kind of like the kind of fusion world jazz scene, because he also worked with Don Cherry, who's this really, if you don't know Don Cherry, but old jazz trumpeter who did a lot of crossover stuff and worked with him a lot, and so I think he would be a cool cat to hang out with, play with or something.
And I love hearing answers of people who I don't know.
Yeah, Jim Pepper, definitely check him out. There's actually a festival that happens in his name like once a year in Portland that's been happening now for like a few years. So yeah, it's still I still think it needs more, you know, it needs more attention, you know. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Where are we most likely to find you for weekend brunch?
You know, probably one of the first places I ever had brunch in Portland, like when I moved here, and I've been here about 20 years, over 20 years, is Bridges on MLK. Yeah. And like, you know, I don't know why, they're always banging out the breakfast brunch thing, and people are coming in and out, but you're not reading some long-ass line or some BS and all that kind of nonsense, and it's always just been kind of like a rootsy place, and I forget her name, but I recognize the same lady, she's been there the whole time. But she might even be the owner, I feel bad, I don't remember this actually. But Bridges, yeah. Good plug, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you could rename any Portland street, which street would you rename and why?
Well, I mean, we changed 39th to Cesar Chavez and MLK. Before my time was like Union. Before that, right? And then I forget, was it Portland Boulevard, right? Rosa Parks.
Correct.
So I just always figured, that like just like a lot of cities, to have a Malcolm X would make a lot of sense to me, just to have that representation. I mean, there's other people in Portland's history too who I would say, like Kent Ford. You were talking about the old Panthers in Portland, and Kent Ford's one of the founders of the Portland Panther Party. So I always thought that would be cool. He's about like 75 years old today, so he's around and everything. So that would also be a beautiful actual commemoration too. But I always feel like there should be a Malcolm X everywhere, so people have that in their brains. You know what I mean?
To keep the whites a little afraid.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Scare the shit out of the way.
Like we
That's right.
Like we're still like don't think
That's right.
it's all we don't have Obama, but like we still the AK's at home, right?
They're coming up from LA for like a condo, and then like this is Malcolm X. Get the fuck out of here, like.
That is something. If we were to name a street Obama, I'm sure the home values would increase on that street, right?
The Republicans.
Your hesitancy actually it makes me rethink whether or not that would be true.
It's like also just as a black person, I can't just live on Obama Street.
You know how many white people would use that as
I know white people are like no, it's cool, I live on Obama Street.
Okay. This is my last question of the evening. Are you ready for it? If you were a tree, which Portland area park would you be in?
I'd definitely be Mount Tabor for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
You have a view of the city.
You get a view of the city. They got, there's the volcano, whatever the name is, amphitheater. I actually been there with Obo Addy back in the day, so there's that nostalgia. Places to barbecue, hike around. Everybody's always around there getting high and stuff. So, it's one of the best parks. And I've taken many naps and done all kinds of interesting things at Mount Tabor.
And other interesting things. All right, once again for Adam Carpinelli. And another